What is going on, VYPE Nation? Another Monday show. My name's Wac. Along with me, as always, my man, Scotty T. Hey, 1 week closer to the football season for high school football. It's almost there. Less than 2 weeks away at this point. But before we talk about any sports, I got to bring in my man, Scotty T. Scotty, how you doing today?
Wac, we're doing good, man. I just made sure that I'm off of mute, so I think we should be all good. But, man, we're doing good. Monday, 2 thumbs up. Monday afternoon, doing great. Just did some recording with the content guys here in Houston. We dropped the football preview cover last night. The cover, not the whole preview, but you can order it on VYPEshop.com. Go get your copy. Photos are on VYPEphotos.com as well. Oh, dude, look at that cover. That is some great stuff over there. You got 4 or 5 stars everywhere, including Denver Harris there on North Shore on the top left, who is now, Josh, we've talked a lot about this, Quinn Ewers going to Ohio State a year early. Denver Harris of North Shore is the #1 recruit in the nation, the entire nation. But he's coming off an ACL surgery. He had tore his ACL against Austin Westlake in the state semifinals last year, so we'll see how he responds this year. But rumors are that he is looking good, he is healthy. Football season's here. Volleyball season's underway, man. I'm so pumped right now. Wac, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. First time, if I'm not mistaken, if I read Josh correctly, Josh Cook, our coworker, that the first time there's a college athlete on the cover, or at least a college champion, I should say, in Sam Houston's over there. So, so we got that. I got not only the UIL state champion, but a college state champion as well on the cover.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. You know, Eric Schmidt, he's the quarterback over at Sam Houston State, led the Bearcats to the state championship this last spring. So Sam Houston State bringing home some hardware, first time ever, if I'm not mistaken. So Eric Schmidt led the Woodlands High School to a state championship game as well. So the guy's a winner, guy's a playmaker. Pretty cool that he's on the cover of the magazine. It's pretty nice having a state championship trophy. You got the Katy Tigers on there who are defending 6A D2 state champs. And then seeing an NCAA championship trophy on the cover, it's pretty neat. First time ever at VYPE.
Next year, me and you on the cover. How about that?
You know, Josh, I don't know if you know this or not, but I low-key won a state champion or a national championship in college. That's a true story.
Go ahead and tell me that story.
You want to tell the story? All right, we're here. Humble brag about myself. I play golf. It was the Club Golf National Championship. That's what we won in college. Spring 2014, Baylor University Club Golf won the NCCGA National Championship at Crystal Springs Resort in New Jersey. So we flew up to New Jersey, and we won the national championship. Pretty neat. Club Golf.
Hey, still counts. You still got to raise up. I don't know if they do trophies in the club golf level, but you know, you got the distinction of being the best. So there's that, right?
We did. We brought home a trophy. That was pretty cool. There's a picture of one of my boys holding the trophy on the plane flight home, and it was a good time, man. It's still club, but I mean, we still had to go out there, hit the shots, and we played the course in the competition that was in front of us. And like, there's actually some low-key really good players out there. D1 is the best in the college ranks, but I mean, club golf, there are some big name schools out there, and there are some guys who could really hit it around out there. So it was pretty fun. I mean, look, it's nothing to bring home about, but it's a fun fact.
Now here's the real question. How did you do at the tournament, Scott?
How did I do? I did not win. I don't remember how I placed. I think I placed top 20. That was pretty cool. Like out of 150 players, something like that. So I don't know. It's fine.
Well, hey, I mean, that is some pretty coolness. So there we go. We got to get you on the cover next year for another state, national champion, whatever you want to call it. And then you can have me, just the guy in the background, maybe like hiding behind the bleachers, like peeking out, trying to photobomb the cover.
You're going to be like the guy from Happy Gilmore. I'm going to be like, how am I supposed to chip with that going on, dog? Good.
Well, look.
This is a family-friendly show, so I got to keep it PG.
Let's get into some sports talk. Not a long show today, but you know we got enough stuff we can talk about for a few minutes here. And let's start at the NFL level. Preseason I guess you can say, officially kicked off. I mean, last week, was officially with the Hall of Fame game with the Cowboys and Steelers, and now we're back with just week one, quote unquote, of the regular preseason, I should say. Your Texans they get the W. I didn't watch the game. I just saw that they had won. Who played quarterback? Deshaun Watson? He didn't play at all, did he?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, he ain't playing in Houston. I think his time in Houston is there's a time limit on it. There's an expiration date. That was what I was looking for. There's an expiration date on his time in Houston. So I don't know if we want to talk about that at the moment. But yeah, he didn't play quarterback.
About who's starting or who's going to start, and will they try? Do you think they'll try and trade from someone like maybe a Gardner Minshew or something like that? That's going to be a backup, a Nick Foles maybe. What do you think Houston Texans are going to do for their quarterback situation?
Who knows? That's kind of Tyrod Taylor right now is probably the favorite to start for the Texans, just because he's been around the league for a long time now, and I feel like he's started in a lot of different places. He's people like Tyrod Taylor, veteran guys. They can come in and they'll win you a few games here and there, but they're not the long-term future. So Tyrod Taylor will probably be the week one starter. I know that we drafted a quarterback in like the 4th or 5th round. I forget his name. He'll probably get some reps at some point. I think even Jeff Driscoll, if you remember him, I believe he's out of Florida from back in the day. He might get some reps too. So the Texans right now are a dumpster fire. They really are. I didn't even watch the game on Saturday. I was out playing golf. I was winning my golf money game. No big deal.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and this really might speak to how much of a dumpster fire the Texans are. Didn't the GM try and stop just practice for the rest of the preseason? Isn't that something I had read, if I'm not mistaken? Do you know? Have you heard about that?
I've not heard about that, actually. It wouldn't surprise me, though. It's a new GM. It's Nick Casterio. The Texans are the least favorite franchise in Houston right now. And that's saying something. I bet you more people go to the Dynamo games than the Texans games. Not really just because it's still the NFL, but people are probably more familiar with the Dynamo than they are the Texans at the moment. Texans are not in good shape. Besides Mark Ingram, I don't really know who's on our roster right now, to be honest. Especially after this whole Deshaun Watson stuff is going down, people have really checked out of the Texans. There's actually, obviously the Astros being in first place in the AL West, that's taken up a lot of time, or people are starting to care about that, especially since we're on the back half of August now, where we're close to it, and people are starting to see the postseason. Those dog days of July and August can get tough in Major League Baseball. There's also a lot of atmosphere. There's a lot of buzz around the Rockets right now. We drafted Jalen Green, 2nd overall in the NBA draft, so there's more buzz around the Rockets right now than the Texans, and the Rockets were dead last in the league last year, so that should tell you something.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. It was actually that the Texans tried to end the media access early and go to the regular season media access, which is basically limiting when the media can be at the practice. So that's what it really was. And yeah, the Texans are just a mess, man. It's and look, my Cowboys. Look, I'm not ready to. We've talked about them before hanging the season. I think they obviously being in the NFC East, they have a good shot of making the playoffs, but they're no top tier team by any means. But the Texans, man, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of team this is heading into the season for the Texans.
Hey, is Dak Prescott going to be ready to go week one?
I think so. He was throwing before the Arizona Cardinals preseason game. He wasn't throwing deep bombs. I think the longest pass he threw was 20 yards. He's getting there. It seems like at this point, and just from watching Hard Knocks and just from reading what everyone's saying, is that this is more the reason he's not kind of back to it yet is mainly a precautionary thing, right? It's a very unique injury that I think they say, which is why they actually reached out to, I think it was the Rangers and the Yankees, because it was kind of more of a baseball type injury with his back. And so and his shoulder back, whatever it kind of was with the muscle there. And so I think it was more of a precautionary thing of just making sure he's good, right? So he's coming off ankle injury. He hasn't really played in a long time. I just want to make sure that because, hey, if Dak's gone, that season is over before it starts, just like last year. So I think from the reports, he should be practicing this week. So we'll see. But hey, it sounds like he's going to be ready for week 1.
So, Josh, this last week, all 5 first-round quarterbacks got to see the field this week. Now, there's one guy who impressed me, and I think really impressed, like my bar is that much to impress by, but he impressed everybody in the country. That was Justin Fields. He looked great out there. Now, it wasn't against the first teamers or anything like that, but he still looked good, comfortable in the pocket, rolling out, making plays. Trevor Lawrence made his debut as well. Who out of those 5 guys impressed you, Josh?
I didn't get to watch everyone, so I think the two, the one I mainly watched was Fields, and he looked great. He looked the part that he'll be taking Andy Dalton's spot sooner rather than later. I think Lawrence looked good out there for what he did. Trey Lance had that one long 80-yard touchdown for the Niners. Then I think he finished 5 for 12 or something like that. So, I think if you looked at everyone, I think you had to say Fields was probably the one that performed the best. And again, yes, it is preseason. I would say Justin Fields 1, Trevor Lawrence 2, and then the other 3, you can kind of place them where you want. But I think those 2 were the best, with Justin Fields being number 1. He looked like he could go week 1 if the Bears wanted him to.
Hey, Josh, I know everybody cares about fantasy football, and I know people really care about my specific fantasy football team. Are you doing fantasy football this year?
Here's the thing with me. I've only done fantasy football once in my life. I haven't done fantasy football in like 10 years, right? So I've only done fantasy football once. I won the league. So technically, I think maybe there's a little bit of, hey, I went out a champion, right? So, so yeah. So one and done. So yeah, I don't do fantasy football. I mean, heck, my schedule as it is. It's too hectic. I would pick my team and they would probably just stay dormant the whole time. Wouldn't make any changes. So, I don't do fantasy football. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I got my fantasy football draft this weekend. Do it just with a bunch of college buddies. So looking forward to seeing all those guys. But yeah, that's interesting what you said about because here at VYPE, we are really busy. And right now, we are just in the heart of preseason football, getting all that stuff ready. Volleyball is well underway as well. So I'm more familiar with what's going on with the Texas high school football scene at the moment than I am with the Houston Texans, which is weird, but that's also the job that we're in.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm still trying to play catch up on the I think there's one team I know a lot about in the NFL right now. It's probably the Cowboys. And that's just because obviously that's my team. It's got Hard Knocks this year, which helps. So I follow a lot of Cowboys beat writers on Twitter. So I'm usually in the know when it comes to Cowboys at least. But yeah, it's like we're so. Like I said earlier, and when the show started, we're 2 weeks away from high school football starting. 2 weeks away from everything starting. College football starts in less than 2 weeks as well, which I can't wait. I'm ready for some football, man. I don't know about you, but I am ready just to have the fans in the stands, have that energy. I think some of those games, especially when you get to some of those really, good matchups. Heck, even that Texas-Louisiana game week 1 where, you got 2 ranked teams playing in probably what's going to be a packed house at UT. I can't wait for it, man.
Yeah, totally agree. And no big deal. I won my fantasy football league last year too. So I'm the defending champion. We have a replica Super Bowl trophy. It's pretty sick. And so I might bring that on the show next week whenever I come back from the draft.
You should.
Kind of rubbing in my
got to go back to back. Have you? Got to get try to get that second ring or however many rings you have at this point. I don't know how many leagues you've
got.
Like
I said, I know everybody cares about my fantasy football league, but we rolled 12 deep in our league, which is a lot. That's the most that you're allowed to. So, and it's pretty competitive year in and year out. So it was one of those if I wasn't going to win sooner rather than later, I was scared I was never going to win. And then my friends would have total bragging rights over me for forever. So pretty pumped about it actually.
Let's shift gears to some high school. I know we got some volleyball is already kicked off, and then there's some teams out there that may have surprised some people. I know you were talking earlier with not me, Josh, but the other Josh, and we might see this in our rankings tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. I don't want to spoil anything yet about how we've ranked quote unquote week 1 of the volleyball season, but you got Woodlands out there. I think they're undefeated right now. You got Clear Springs, I believe it's Clear Springs, who have beat, I think it's Katy Seven Lakes, defending state champion. So, some of these defending state champions have already lost a few games, and some of these other teams that people may have slept on have started off pretty strong, Scott.
Yeah, Clear Springs off to a good start right now. The Woodlands is off to a phenomenal start at this moment. I think they're 8-1 on the year. I don't think they're undefeated right now, but 8-1, beating some really good teams. Josh, another team that I've been pretty impressed with is San Antonio Brandeis. How about that? San Antonio Brandeis. They won the Cy-Fair and Katy ISD volleyball tournament this weekend. That's a pretty big tournament. There's a lot of teams that are playing in it, a lot of really good teams. They beat Cy Ranch. So Cy Ranch on the flip side, also a surprise team early on this year. So really impressed with Cy Ranch for making the game. They have a freshman, last name Porter. I forget her first name, but we've dropped a story on that at VYPE.com, so go check that out. Just like search Cy Ranch or whatnot, and it'll pop up. #PorterGirl is the title. So Cy Ranch doing really well, but then San Antonio Brandeis over there, I didn't realize they returned a lot of talent at the moment. So they have a couple of D1 commits that are still on that team, and by winning this tournament, I really think it put their name as a serious contender for a deep run in the playoffs and potentially state championship come the end of the year.
Yeah, and
this is all assuming that people stay healthy. I want to preface, like anything that we're talking about here, the health is the biggest question, especially in volleyball and football, right? I mean, you're putting your bodies on the line. Volleyball, you're jumping all over the place. It's so easy to roll ankles. It happens all the time. So anything we're talking about, barring health, but San Antonio Brandeis could be a team to watch this year.
I think that's always the caveat, right? And any team we hype on, it's always, hey, they have to stay healthy. But yeah, Brandeis, I think we had them at 4 last week in our preseason rankings. And I think I remember saying, and maybe this was maybe not on the show. I could have sworn I said it on the show, but Brandeis was one of those teams to watch just because, they always had that pedigree. We'd ranked Reagan and Dripping Springs and one other team ahead of them. And then, they come out in this tournament and just dominate. Of course, I'm following Max Prep, so, be that way, but I have them at 9-0 right now for San Antonio Brandeis. Let's just say they won't be number 4 tomorrow on our rankings for the show, but definitely tune in to see where we rank them at. They won't be at number 4. But yeah, that's one of those teams where the last few years they felt like they've been right on that cusp, and maybe this is that year where they can finally get to that level and win it all. And what about football? I mean, have you been following? I know preseason, it's still preseason, regular season hasn't started yet, but have you been keeping your eyes on any of these teams? I know we're gonna reveal our preseason rankings. I'm gonna say next week for football. I don't think it's because there's still one more week till week 1, so we'll reveal our rankings next week for football. But unless you're in Houston, if you're in Houston, Josh and Matt I think they have released or gonna release their rankings for the Houston 5A, Houston 6A, and private. Of course, we do it a little differently on the live show. But what's your initial reaction to the preseason for high school football, Scott?
Yeah, so preseason football, I'll mainly focus on Houston area just because that's kind of what been really like deep in the woods and the weeds in is the Houston area. So we dropped the 6A Houston rankings starting off, and man, I'll tell you what, the first 7 teams, it's all about quarterback play. Minus North Shore and Katy. I want to preface that. So Katy, they do return their quarterback from their state championship team last year. I'm blanking on his name right now. I apologize. But Katy just has a program. They have so many D1 athletes on their team, football commits. Katy is Katy. They are the program. Same with North Shore. John Kay over there has done a phenomenal job. So those are the 2 caveats aside, right? Because those 2 teams they are programs, phenomenal programs. Spring, Atascocita, Bridgeland, Westfield, and Ridgepoint come in at 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those have some really good quarterbacks on those teams. At Spring, you got Bishop Davenport. He just committed to Utah State. Those guys are really bullish on Spring. And Spring is interesting to me because they're in Houston, but they play in Region 2. So that means that in order for Spring to make a deep playoff run, they got to go through some of those Dallas schools to get in there. And we were doing some preseason rankings last week. Those Dallas those DFW Metroplex schools are incredible. Like, if I'm not mistaken, spoiler alert, we had like Alito at 8 or 9, and it's like, but they've won the most state championships ever in the state, and they're already 8 and 9. Like, it's incredible the deep talent down there, and they're on 5A. So for spring for 6A, it's tough to tell or to guess how far they're going to go in the playoffs because it depends if they go D1 or D2. You know, Katy they won the state championship in D2 while Westlake won in D1. The only reason why Katy went D2 was because Seven Lakes made the playoffs versus like Cinco Ranch, for example. So if it plays out like we predict in, I believe they're District 20 6A or 19 6A, Cinco Ranch will make the playoffs. That's what Dennis Silva II is predicting. And if Cinco Ranch makes the playoff because they have a higher enrollment, they have a lower enrollment, that will make Katy D1. That brings up a different ballgame. Same thing applies to spring. Spring can go D1 or D2, and so depending on who they go, D1, D2 depends on who they'll play in the playoffs because they could get knocked out by Denton Guyer, they could get knocked out by Dallas Jesuit. Allen is in D2, Duncanville is in D2 as well. Like, those are some pretty incredible teams. So the D1 versus D2 thing is really tricky, but at the 5A level, it's already preset. So that's why it's crapshoot. Who really knows? But spring is really high on them. Also, another Region 2 team is Bridgeland. They have Connor Wigman, A&M commit. He just came out over the weekend that he's going to skip his spring senior season. So that means he's foregoing the MLB draft. He's a highly talented MLB prospect. He's going to be skipping the MLB draft, going to Texas A&M. So he could be playing for the Aggies in baseball this spring, or if he wants to do spring football, whatever's up to him. Josh, what you got? Did you want to chime in here on my D1 versus D2 rant?
Yeah. Well, first off, it sounds like he's going to take the Kyle Allen route, because Kyle Allen played quarterback at Oklahoma, and I think it was shortstop, I believe, or third base at Oklahoma as well, and he got drafted by both NFL and MLB.
Well, I mean, even Kyler Murray did too. Kyler Murray played baseball at Oklahoma and A&M when he was at A&M. And same with Russell Wilson. Like, a lot of the baseball guys or a lot of NFL quarterbacks were also really talented baseball players, naturally, just because of the arm strength.
I said Kyle Allen. I meant Kyle Murray, who went to Allen High School. Yeah. There you go. Got my names mixed up. But, yeah, you brought up a good point. I mean, and yes, there's the thought of, obviously a 7A conference happening maybe in the next 4 or 5 years or so. But do you think it's weird how basically 1A through 5A and football has, Division 1, Division 2, but 6A, they just kind of wait to see based on enrollment and records and all that. Do you think 6A should be broken up into a Division 1, Division 2?
I'm going to do a little CYA real quick. These opinions are my own, not of VYPE Media. No official stances. Right, Josh?
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's like if you watch a video, the person's like, I'm not a financial advisor, but you should buy that. Anyway, in my opinion, yes, it is weird. The fact it's weird because 5A and 6A are different. Like, if you had them the same, okay. Like, I still think it's weird that depending on who makes the playoffs in 6A and 5A, like, it just – or in 6A, who goes D1, D2, while 5A is already predetermined split up. Like, that Fort Bend Marshall is going to go, I believe it's D2. And then you have other schools that are going to go D1 just because it's already based off enrollment. I don't understand why the 6A schools aren't that way. I'm sure somebody at the UIL or even like one of our writers here at VYPE could explain it to me a little bit better. But, like, why don't you just already have that predetermined to start the season so that way you know what your path to a state championship could potentially look like?
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. It's one of those weird things too, because we can make that argument that some schools should be D1, some schools should be D2, but then we go and look at Carthage, who actually had dropped down a division because they had a lower enrollment, and they're still dominating. So it's like, yeah, I get it and I don't get it, but at the same time, it's like, does it really matter? Because when you look at some schools, like when you think of Carthage, for example, it really doesn't matter. Where they land, they still dominate. So. It's one of those weird things. It is weird, but hey, it makes things interesting because then when you get closer to the end of the season, you're like, oh, well, if so-and-so wins or so-and-so loses, then you can have a power like, Westlake drop down and maybe have an easier path to a state championship, quote unquote, easier path. I use quote unquote there because, usually you think the power's playing at the top level. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, yeah, that's what some people say about Katie's state championship is that they won at the D2 level, or even when they won their last state championship before that, I believe it was 2015. When they won in 2015, they didn't have to face Kyler Murray at Allen because he was out winning state championships at the D1 level. Katie was winning state championships at the D2 level. So in that 2015, Katie defense is considered one of the best of all time. It would have been pretty amazing to see Katie versus Kyle Murray and the Allen Eagles that year. So, but it's all based off enrollment. Schools like Katy or even Westlake, they teeter from one year to the other. And look, if you're those schools, they're probably sick and tired of people like us talking about it because all you got to do as a team is face who's in front of you. That's all you got to do. Beat who's in front of you, and in that case, you don't make the rules. But the rules are just kind of weird to me. I don't know. The whole district realignment and whatnot, yes, 7A probably needs to happen at some point. Like, the schools are getting too big. Like, if you have a Westlake, for example, who ended up winning D1 this year, they were right on the edge of enrollment for just 6A really in general versus an Allen High School. Their enrollment is practically double the enrollment of Westlake. But Westlake still goes down. So theoretically, if you have more kids to pull from, then you can win. You should have theoretically a better talent pool. So it's an interesting thing. It's not a problem. I want to preface that. It's not a problem for the UIL. It works. It gives us curiosity, to your point, Josh. It gives the unpredictability every single year. But something's going to have to change relatively soon. It's not pressing. They're not in trouble or any. It's not a problem yet. But it could be if it gets out of control.
I think that's a nice little point to put a pin on. Put a pin on that conversation. I think it definitely adds intrigue, like we've both mentioned. So I think that's really all we need to talk about sports-wise today. I mean, it's that quiet, that calm before the storm, if you will, right? So I mean, volleyball season's kicked off. Football is right there on the corner. Don't go Astros, But I think we should move on to our favorite segment of the show. Who's that mascot? Yes, we are going to play Who's That Mascot. That's where I should say, I give Scott a school, and he has to tell me what mascot is associated with that school. Scott, I think I've given you some good ones this week. I think I've given you some ones. I've given you ones that are known, right? I think all these schools at least 4A and above. Yes, they're all 4A and above at least. And the one 4A is a very well-known 4A. And hey, now that we're doing these rankings, that should help you as well, I feel like. So, Scotty,
I hope so.
Are you ready for your first one?
Yeah, what you got?
All right, your first one is Denton Ryan.
You know this one. The Raiders.
What is it, Scotty?
The Denton Ryan Raiders.
That is correct. The Denton Ryan Raiders. Starting off strong. They've come in ranked in our volleyball rankings as well, I believe. So, that name is fresh in your mind. But they're also a football power. So, hey, one for one. There you go. All right, you ready for your second one?
Yes.
Round Rock.
I want to say Round Rock Express, but that's because I know that's the baseball team there.
I will say this is a very unique name. Maybe not very unique, but a unique name.
The Round Rock. Oh gosh, if you're gonna tell me, and I'm gonna get really mad. I don't know.
The Round Rock I don't knows is.
I'm gonna say Round Rock Rebels.
Round Rock Rebels. Well, a lot of schools are moving away from the Rebels mascot, but you are incorrect. Round Rock Dragons. Round Rock Dragons. Would you have known that, Scotty?
No. I would not have done it.
They have made our rankings a few times, so that's why I had him in there. It's like maybe he would recognize the name there. All right, moving on to our last one. This one is the 4A school. It is West La Vega. Always competing with Carthage for the state champions. Looks like Scotty may know this one. Scotty, what is your answer?
Waco La Vega Pirates.
Correct. Booyah! 2 for 3 this week. Almost with we're gonna get you with that clean sweep one day, Scotty. But 2 for 3. Really, really good job there, Scotty. How do you feel?
Who at Round Rock decided the Dragons? Like, really? Out of all of them?
Hey, Dragons fierce,
I feel like most mascots are some sort of alliteration of what they are. Like, I don't know, like the Madison Marlins. They just kind of rolls off your tongue. Like, why wouldn't you come up with Round Rock Roadrunners or something? I don't know.
Well, let's move on to our final segment of the show. And that's one good thing. That's where me and Scott, we give you one good thing we saw or whatever this past week. Scotty, let's start with you. What's your one good thing from this past week?
Josh, I kind of forgot about the one good thing segment, to be honest.
Was it winning that golf tournament thing, getting that money?
Yeah, I mean, it's more just, I mean, there's some good stuff going on professionally and personally as well that I will probably share at a later date. Just some behind the scenes stuff. Man, I don't know. What do you have? Let me think on it real quick.
I'm going to say my one good thing is going to be just that the Paralympics is right around the corner. I mean, everyone's so good with the Olympics but they don't realize, hey, the Olympics isn't over when the, like last week when it was over, right? It takes a 2-week break and then we get the Paralympics, which I'm super excited for. So you get some more athletes competing. So I think that's my one good thing is that. Scotty, do you have something in mind now?
I do. My one good thing is school. School's back, and kids are back in school, which is great. There's a bunch of school districts that started today here in the Houston area. So it was weird having traffic in the morning. I had to drive through a school zone and whatnot today, but it was just school being back, I think, is a good thing. So that's my one good thing.
That's a pretty good point. That's a pretty good little one good thing to close things on. School's back. Things. We'll see how they turn out, but yeah, I like that, Scotty. Well, hey, any last words before?
School's back. I mean, look, I think we'll recognize the importance of education here, and so I think it's really, really great that kids are back in school.
There you go. Any last things you want to do, shout outs or anything before we head out for today's show?
Go check out all football previews, VYPE.com. They are all over the place.
If you live in Houston,
DFW.
If you live in Houston, pick up that magazine.
I got the volleyball one right here. Football will probably be. It's being shipped today, so I don't know. Thursday is probably when it'll be in. So yeah, go check it out. Got to do some distro come Thursday or Friday. It's pretty cool. But yeah, follow us on social media channels at VYPE Houston, at VYPE Texas on Facebook, at VYPE Houston on Houston, or on Twitter and Instagram. Wherever you're listening, hey, why don't you give us a subscribe, rate, and review? Give us 5 stars, huh? Pretty cool.
Hey, and we'll be back tomorrow with our ranking show. We got our week 1 volleyball rankings tomorrow. Taylor will be with me and you as well to do that. So we'll see how week 1 has shooken things up with tournaments and regular season games happening. Until then, I'm Wac. That's Scotty T. Thanks for joining us.
Take care, everybody.